Hello. First of all, if there was Instagram and social media 100 years ago or so, everybody would be posting pictures of dead people.
So, Roman, if you don't mind, I'll ask you first. Are modern day economic challenges and the threats of war a valid reason to forego having kids? So, should we not have kids right now because of the economic and wartime threats?
Yeah, that's a great question. As far as I think it's a person's perspective or their understanding of valid reason. Now, if you're asking me directly, of course not, man. If we start talking about external circumstances dictating our internal, external things controlling how we operate with our family, with our life, I think we've all seen movies where childbirth during a terrible time has caused some, troubles for the main character of a movie. And then I know there's tons of them. I can actually send them to you guys. I've watched them recently. There's one actually on Netflix right now. I think it's called Nowhere. I don't know if you guys have watched that one, but so that would be more of a scenario where I'd probably think twice before having kids. I'd probably double up on the protection, so to speak. But
what do you mean by protection?
I'm referring to
No, that's okay. Sorry, carry on.
You know what I mean. Yeah, so okay, back to your question. Is what currently is happening in the world, would that prevent me from having kids? I want to say the answer is absolutely not. I think having kids and determining on how you're going to raise them has nothing to do with what's happening in the world, unless you're living in somewhere like North Korea or something that actually dictates some form of laws around having kids. Because let me put some things into perspective, guys. About 100 years ago, okay, there was diseases like cholera, tuberculosis, there was smallpox, and the average lifespan, somebody can Google this. I wish we had a Jamie, from Joe Rogan. He just
That's
says,
right.
Jamie, Google that. But the average lifespan was like 30 to 50 years old. And hold on, actually, let me be clear. About 130, maybe 150 years ago, I could live in a town where I would rape and pillage and murder people, hop on a train or on my horse, ride over, for a couple hours to the other town, and literally rinse and repeat over and over again until they put up a poster of me and somebody eventually shot me or caught me. So, if you're comparing times now versus then, think about the drastic difference that we've experienced over the last 100 years. Think about, and I'm not just talking about technological advances and economical advances. I'm talking about how much people say, oh, there's so much negativity. There's so much bad stuff happening in the world. Hello. First of all, if there was Instagram and social media 100 years ago or so, everybody would be posting pictures of dead people because there was so many people passing away. They're literally now, imagine somebody passes away on the street, they're going to clean that almost immediately. And there's going to be like a crime scene investigation and they're going to catch the guy who did it. We live in a time where 99% of the time they're going to catch the guy who did it. All these murder mystery movies that we see are not very realistic because at the end of the day, as far as the crime sector is involved, most of the time it's a very simple case and most of the time they solve it unless you're dealing with a serial killer, which is not very common these days. So, but back then, what the hell was a fingerprint device? There was no cameras. There was no facial recognition. I could literally put on a bandana or some kind of mask and go rob a bank and then leave and not leave the country, just leave the area and they'll never catch me.
Mm-hmm. So the moral of your diatribe is that you want to have kids.
Well, I am planning to have kids, of course.
Well, there you go. There you go. I think
absolutely.
so. I would. I mean, look, how many kids were people having back then? I mean,
Yeah, exactly.
But nowadays,
more,
I mean,
right?
you have maybe one or two.
The people would have literally 5 to 10 kids back then. You know why? Because
they're hoping that one's going to survive.
They already went into it knowing that 30% are going to die or 60% are going to die, depending on where they lived. That's how people had kids.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. So, Michael, how do you feel? What are your thoughts?
Well, yes, there's obviously Roman make a good point, and I think that it's everything now is more visible with the news and the instant spread of anything that is negative, because that's what people tend to, right? They never look at the positive and how good of a life we have compared to how it used to be. So I think that was a very excellent point that Roman did. And it just adds to, I think that there are people now have more anxiety because they're worried more about the future with all of this news and things that are happening, that they feel they're out of control, and it's more in your face than it used to be, right? Because back then you had to take a newspaper and read about all this stuff. Now it's like everywhere, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, so it sounds like you also would take a stance of having kids during
Oh,
this time.
yes. I think that, well, I mean, I'll ask you, I mean, it depends on your personal situation, but I think we're very fortunate that we live in Canada and there's no active war and we're far away from it, right? So I think that we're pretty good here. Is it going to escalate? I mean, you can't really make assumptions and live in fear, right? I think you gotta, family is one of the big, I think, parts of our lives, and a very important one, right? Kind of pass on your knowledge and experience and raise someone is I think that's and Josh, you're the only one with an experience, right? So you can add on to it, but I think it's a very rewarding process, even though they become teenagers more difficult now and whatnot. But it's like your mini you, right? And you're like passing on your DNA and your experience, you're teaching them about life, and I think it's a very rewarding process, not process, it's part of your life, right?
Oh, definitely. I mean, I have a 17-year-old son, and I wouldn't give that up for anything into this
But
world.
I think
But
it's all
yeah.
about the focus, right? What you're focusing on is what, like, if you find, if you, some, I think that whatever conclusion you already have in your head, you can just find the support, or to find ideas or things to support it, right? So if you already make a decision that you're kind of like, oh, I don't really want to have kids, you can find all
Mhm.
these reasons not to have them. But if you want to have them, you find all the reasons
Yeah.
why would you have them, right? So it's really about that. So I think that either you want to have it and you find the reasons, or not and you find excuse, right?
Hmm.
If you're interested in exploring more topics like today's or have suggestions for future discussions, we'd love to hear from you. So please leave a comment below. To find out where you stand in the 3 core areas of your life, health, wealth, and relationships, take our free assessment at liferocketuniversity.com. We will see you next time at the Life Rocket University Studios.